Yo, what's shaking bacon? It's time for the sports court. It's another Tuesday, and there's some more NBA playoff games that are in the books. I got to say, what started off as a pretty exciting NBA playoffs now is down to one series that looks like it's going to be a sweep, one that looks like it's pretty competitive, tied 2-2 in the Eastern Conference. Of course, what else would you expect coming out of the East as competitive as that conference has been in years past? And then we got a couple of big name college head coaches, going at each other between Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher. Of course, the Astros still playing good baseball, riding a strong wave from the young Jeremy Pena. And the Houston Rockets, they've been awarded the third pick in the NBA draft, again drafting in the top 3. But, Greg, I know we're a little bit disappointed here in Houston. Why can't it just be like the draft used to be, the draft lottery, I mean? Why can't it be like it used to be where that team that's in last place is almost guaranteed to get that number 1 pick? Because here we are 2 years in a row for the Rockets with the worst record in the league and no number 1 pick, but there is a big, fat wad of talent up at the top of that draft, so they're going to get a very good player regardless. As long as they are picking in that top 3, which they are, I think they're going to be happy with whoever they come away with. But where you want to start tonight, Greg? You want to start with Saban and Jimbo throwing a couple of haymakers at each other?
It's on you.
These two guys here, A&M, even before Jimbo Fisher got there, for whatever reason, going all the way back to the days of Johnny Manziel, I'd say they've probably been that one team out of the SEC that just seems to have Alabama's number. Not to the tune of where they found them in the playoffs and have been able to knock them off, but every year it seems like if Alabama's going to get that loss, it's been pretty much to Texas A&M and the occasional Ole Miss, but mainly it's A&M finding a way to just have Saban and Alabama's number throughout the years.
Well, I think Jimbo has only beaten Saban once.
Yeah, I said going back to even
going
before
back with
Jimbo.
Manziel and all this and that.
So I feel like it's been this thing's kind of been building with Saban ever since before A&M. Once they first came into the SEC, they've kind of been looming large, and now NIL has opened the door for them to sort of be able to recruit in a way they can compete with Alabama and with Saban, because there's more to offer than just the prospects of a national championship. We're talking about cold, hard cash that is to be made by these players, and it's changed everything. And I know Saban's just been, waiting. When was it going to happen? Because Texas A&M instantly becomes a powerhouse. If they can recruit the way they recruited this year, I mean, they instantly become a problem for Saban and company immediately now that this NIL new rule is in effect in college football.
And that's where Saban's frustration has come from. And Saban was definitely wrong. He was definitely wrong in calling out Dion and calling out Jimbo Fisher. Thing about it, now Saban feels the pressure. Now, Jimbo, he has to prove it on the field because obviously they won last year 41-37. Now I think Nick Saban, he sees these kids, now they're having more control on things, and now he sees that the playing field may get leveled out some, and he's worried about that because he's been so dominant over the years. Now, make no mistake about it, it's not like Nick Saban had the worst recruiting class in the nation. They were number 2 as far as recruiting is concerned. But you have Texas A&M who's coming up the pipeline. He sees they're getting recruits that they normally probably wouldn't get. And, of course, Jimbo, he went back at Nick Saban after Nick Saban called him out publicly. And Nick Saban eventually walked his comments back and apologized for actually calling out Jimbo Fisher, who's his former assistant, as a matter of fact. And it got pretty heated. It got pretty nasty. Now, the thing about it, Texas A&M, they don't have any of those, 5-star recruits in next year's class. So I don't know what the hoopla is about. Again, Alabama, they got the number 2 recruiting class in this situation. So it's simple. Nick Saban, he feels like his reign on being able to do whatever he wants to do as far as recruiting is concerned, he feels that he's losing his reign in that regard. And Jimbo, he's pushing back, saying, hey, you're a guy that I know I've coached under, and it got very personal. So it has to be, I think it's something else behind the scenes that we don't know about. But now he's pushing back, saying that, of course, Nick Saban, you want to call him the GOAT and the greatest coach of all time. He's pretty much saying that, hey, he's done some things that he knows about that's illegal that people should be aware of, and that he's not the god of coaching that everyone thinks he is, and he's not doing everything the right way as well. And if you think about it, Eddie, I mean, recruits have been getting paid and things have been happening under the table for years and years and years, for decades. I mean, I can go back all the way to the SMU days and even before that, and even leading up to Nick Saban's comments. I mean, you never know what's going on behind the scenes at these programs. The only difference is now it's legalized. Now they're putting it in a legal format where these guys can actually get paid, make money, and these schools are actually, even though supposedly that's not supposed to be a recruiting tactic, you know obviously it is. So I think Nick Saban, he just feels the heat and the pressure of losing that top notch or that number one standing as far as being able to get anybody that he wants at any given time, because now it's legal that these guys can actually get paid. Now these recruits, now they have more say-so and they have more power, whereas before you have somebody like Nick Saban who's the judge, the jury, and the executioner. So now he feels some of that power slipping away, and it's slipping away not only to some of these teams that he's competing with and some of these coaches that he's competing against, but also now the players are going to have more power as well to dictate some things. And I just think he doesn't feel like he has the power that he once had. Now, again, make no mistake about it, Texas A&M, as much as you want to say about Texas A&M, where did they go? 4-4 in the SEC last season. So at the end of the day, they're going to have to prove it on the field, and it's only one recruiting class. So I think Nick Saban is trying to get out ahead of it right now and really call it to the carpet and really let it be known that he wants it to stop right now before this continues for another year or another 2 years, and where Alabama will not be the juggernaut in recruiting like they once was. So that was definitely something, a tactic that he used, and he was wrong for naming names in that situation. And Jimbo definitely, I don't blame Jimbo for pushing back on him in that regard. But that's Nick Saban just trying to get out ahead of it, call it to the carpet, let everyone know that it's not right, and hopefully, because he's Nick Saban, that maybe the NCAA can do something about this to curtail it to some degree so he can't lose his power on this recruiting and things of that sort. So
look, this is simple. You know, Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher, these guys have been around college football for a very long time. And when things start changing, if you don't see those things directly benefiting, your program, or if you see another program, especially a program that's a rival program, you see them benefiting, a lot more than maybe your program is from it, then it's easy to try to call it out and to try to, rebel against the change. But let's face it, this is where college football has been headed for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And now that it's finally here, these coaches are just going to, have to adjust to it. It's just going to be the way that things are. And between Saban and Jimbo Fisher, Saban, you got to give him credit here in the sense for this, Greg. Think about it. If you're getting your tail whipped, on the recruiting path throughout the state of Texas, you're seeing these recruits that you used to get that were willing to come and sit behind players for 2-3 years, because it's the prestigious Alabama. Now they're going to A&M. How can you change that? How can you get an edge? How can you make a kid think about maybe not making that decision to go with that NIL deal that's over there in A&M? Well, why don't you plant a little seed in the back of their mind that maybe there's something illegal going on over there, and you could lose your head coach in Jimbo Fisher if you commit to A&M, or something could happen that could cause you to not have, the collegiate career that's going to lead to, of course, an NFL career.
Mm-hmm.
Get these recruits thinking that maybe there's something else going on over there that could go wrong. Maybe I go with the safe bet if I'm a recruit in Nick Saban, and I go to somewhere where they've been good for a long time. They're going to continue to be good for a long time. And there isn't something simple as an allegation or anything going to stir up the old Nick Saban or get him knocked off his perch.
Hey, well, I'll tell you like this. Speaking of Nick Saban and Texas A&M, I think today I actually saw where Nick Saban, he actually lassoed a recruit that Texas A&M just lost. The guy, and I don't know the guy's name right now.
You're talking about Eli Holstein. This
That's
is a 4-star quarterback that was a verbal commit to
So
Texas
Saban
A&M,
has to feel good about
and
that.
now he's going to Alabama.
Well, Saban has to feel good about that. And again, this is about power and control. Nick Saban has always been the guy that's been able to dictate who he signs and things of that sort. And again, this stuff has been going on for years, illegal recruiting and things going on behind the scenes. Again, now it's just legalized. It's in a legal sense. It's in a legal form. And that really scares Nick Saban. And Jimbo Fisher, he did not take kindly to it at all as far as the comments are concerned. And again, but what's this going to boil down to? What it's going to boil down to? It's going to boil down to competing on the football field. And it's only 1 year. So again, that's why I think Nick Saban is bringing it to the forefront right now, because he sees A&M. He knows Jimbo Fisher is a great recruiter. He's already going in there and getting some of these people just off his personality alone. You see what he did at Florida State when he's able to win that national championship and the recruits that he was able to get over there. So I think Nick Saban feels the pressure of Jimbo Fisher and his recruiting tactics, not only now because of the NIL rules, but because he knows he actually was Jimbo Fisher's, he was his boss when they were at LSU. He knows, and they won a national championship at LSU, and he knows how great of a recruiter Jimbo Fisher can be. So he's worried about down the line, year 2, year 3, year 4. Even though Nick Saban is 70 years old, I don't think he plans on going anywhere anytime soon. And he just feels the pressure from A&M and Nick Saban if he's able to do that again next year and get these recruits. And again, in next year's class, early on right now, to Jimbo Fisher's credit, or to the fact that he says that he don't have anyone that he signed to an NIL deal. I think one person, not all the players, or not 10 players like they said he supposedly had. In next year's class, 2023, he doesn't have not one five-star recruit that's actually committed to play for them right now. So if he was actually doing all these things and actually using that NIL rule as a tactic to really get all these big-time recruits, as of right now, his 2023 class does not have one five-star recruit. And again, last year, of course, they were able to win in the recruiting race. But again, it's going to come down to what you can do on the football field. A&M, now they beat Alabama last year. I'm sure that has a lot to do with it as well. So Nick Saban feels the pressure from Texas A&M. But Texas A&M, since Jimbo Fisher has been there, again, last year they went 4-4. So at the end of the day, Alabama still has the most talent on the football field. If Nick Saban feels that he's the best coach your players up, the players that you get in there, whether they're four-star recruits or whatever, if you feel strongly about your coaching staff and the way you can get these guys, you can really bring the best out of your players, hey, just go out there and play ball like you just said, Eddie. That's where we are right now as far as the recruiting is concerned. That's the way it's going to be, and Nick Saban has to live with that. And, yes, these players are going to have more control now, and they're going to dictate a lot of what goes on. And, of course, they're going to hey, money talks and you know what walks. So that's where we are right now. And Nick Saban, he feels some of that power he feels he's losing some of that power right now, just not only in recruiting, but also the power over these players as well. So he's feeling the heat.
We see that happen with, these mad scientists like coaches like him and Bill Belichick. They get paranoid. They lock themselves in their coaching office. Mm-hmm. They just hit the old playbooks, or they start scouting the opponent. They start to worry about somebody coming to knock them off of their hill, when they've been king of the hill for so long. But let's face it, Alabama, Jimbo Fisher, and Texas A&M, I feel like these are two teams that are going to be battling for SEC championships for the next decade.
Well, it definitely makes it interesting.
I don't think either one of them are going anywhere. I mean, Saban, we know he's getting older, but I think he can do this for a very long time. Maybe Bobby Bowden,
he has a young energy,
ultimately, yeah, absolutely. He's always been,
and he's always around young people, young players, right?
Just full of fire.
Right.
He's actually, his old age has actually helped him calm down and made him made him a better coach.
Right,
the older he got,
and maybe he can coach longer now because he's toned it down and he doesn't get all uptight about everything. And maybe that's helped him actually. That's actually giving him some longevity.
Yeah, without a doubt. But
it's going to be interesting doing the SEC Media Day. And, of course, now all eyes. Now, since Jimbo came out and defended himself, which he has the right to do, and I'm glad he did that, And, of course, Nick Saban walked back the comments to a degree, like I said. But the damage had already been done. He had already put the comments out there for the masses to hear and for college football, the college football committee, and the people that makes these decisions to hear to try to hopefully curtail some of this in the future. But now there's a big target on that game itself, whenever that game is in October, November, or whatever it is. Now, since Jimbo has come out and said all these things about Nick Saban, now he's going to have to go out and prove it on the field. Now, you think Nick Saban, if a situation comes up in that game where he can run up the score, you don't think that Nick Saban will want to run up the score in this situation? So now that puts more pressure on those players at Texas A&M, which Jimbo probably loves that, and the players probably love that. Now that's probably going to make them take their game to another level. So that game is going to become even that more important when they do play.
The pressure is going to be there already because of these NIL deals where these kids are getting paid, where, these boosters or whatever clubs whatever you want to call these organizations that are helping these kids get these deals.
Right.
There's going to be pressure on these kids to produce because this money is being spent, and it certainly doesn't want to be spent in a fashion that is seen as a waste by the endorsers, I should say the sponsors that are spending the money.
Right.
That's an added pressure that's going to be on these kids
It
already.
really is.
It's going to be a new aspect of athlete or a new type of athlete, a kid that is essentially a professional athlete, but at the collegiate level. We've always thought it was professional sports, but you had a paycheck to it, and we're talking about kids having real money to do stuff with now at the collegiate level.
That's
that
true.
Opens up a whole new door. It could lead to a can of worms, or it could lead to a lot of success. We don't know.
The pressure is definitely going to be heightened.
I will say this: kids younger, or they're maturing at a younger age. These kids are becoming smarter. They're letting people help them handle their money and things like that. So I'm not too worried about it, especially when you see what some of these kids can do for some of their families.
And I mean, I totally agree with that. They can definitely be set up and set their families up for many years to come. And I agree with you. Now the pressure is heightened for them to actually produce. And then another thing that frustrates,
regardless of what's going on between the two head coaches.
Right. And then another thing that frustrates these coaches at this point is the transfer portal right now. So now you have these guys coming in here, whether they have an NIL deal or whatever, now they can come in here, and if they don't like the way you're handling them or the way you're handling business, or they don't like their situation at that particular school, they can leave and they can play the actual next season. Yeah. So that takes some of the power away as well. But to your point about these players being a lot smarter now,
for
absolutely,
for college football, which
absolutely,
is unlike anything they've ever had. Usually you'd have to sit out a year.
Right,
but
absolutely.
COVID kind of opened the door for everything with that. Whenever COVID-19 hit and players they could choose to sit out the season or to play. It opened the door where every transfer was going to be able to go through because of COVID-19. And then they saw how fluidly things moved around college football and how it opened up doors and opportunities for kids that might have been stuck in certain situations where they weren't going to get to play.
Right.
And they said, well, let's just let this play out another year and let's do it like that. And then, boom, here comes NIL out of nowhere. And now if you can get an NIL deal somewhere else, you can transfer and go to that school over there and play. So essentially now you have free agency in college football. And why not?
I mean, that's good. Because the coaches can leave when they want to leave.
Yeah, if the kids aren't playing, they can go play somewhere else. Let the kid go play somewhere else.
Eddie, and to your point about the players are a lot smarter now, you remember it used to be a time where the stereotype for football players was dumb football players, dumb jocks. And
Big and dumb.
That is not the case, man. You listen to these guys talk in interviews, of course, with social media and things of that sort. And these guys, they speak very intelligently, very articulate. And I'm talking about, for the most part, every person, and not just college football, the NFL. When you listen to these players now, man, you're talking about a stereotype that has definitely gone down the drain. I mean, these guys are very well-spoken, very articulate. They really know how to convey what they're trying to convey to the audience or to anybody that's listening in a great way. I mean, these guys are very intelligent. And they're going to use that intelligence to actually do what's best for them with the NIL deals and with the transfer portal. And Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher, they're going to have to quit their fighting, and they're just going to have to go do some old-fashioned recruiting. And, again, it's been going on for years, illegal recruiting and things being done behind the scenes and under the table and things of that sort.
I mean,
now it's just legalized.
Happens at the high school level where
absolutely
the kids' parents will get, help bought a house, or get offered a job. You can come work at the school here if your kid comes and plays in this district. Stuff like that happens all the time at the high school level.
I remember when
There's
I first
new and creative
speaking
ways
of
to
this,
do it at the collegiate level.
Absolutely. Now, when I was in high
NIL
school,
is
when
that.
I signed with Ohio State, before I actually went to Ohio State for camp my freshman year, Coach Gene Huey, love that guy, gave me a chance to do what I had to do at Ohio State when no other major school was recruiting me like that. I had a lot of other smaller schools that was recruiting me. But as soon as I signed with them, they had me a job over the summer at a construction company right here in Houston. I'm talking about making like $20 an hour. I lasted for like 3 days. I'm like, nah, I'm good. Hey, man, I was like, this is my last summer here in town. I wanted to go to pool parties and hang out and kick it and, of course, work out too as well. But I lasted for like 3 days. But they had me a job with no problem, man, no problem, making like $20 an hour. Check this out. So one time, so I got me a complete tool set. I'm talking about mom paid like, what, almost $200 for a set of tools, right? So for a few days, I went to the job for a few days, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I'm like, no, this is not for me. And those guys over there working, man, all that money she spent on that tool set or whatever, it went to waste. And so I lasted for like 3 days. And then, so what happened was I just stopped going. So I would leave home every morning like I was going to work and actually go somewhere else, go to one of my friends' house and hang out all day.
Wrong.
Hey, man, I was just thinking about going to camp, man. I didn't want to work at a construction site at that time. But, hey, to your point, they will find you a job and all this and that. I was just harkening back right there. So we shall see.
Not to take a step back, but I will take a little bit of a step back. When bullets start flying around between Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban, you did mention, some other people took some shots. One was Deion Sanders and Jackson State. And a lot of questions get raised about how they are getting some of the recruits that they're getting. And
it's prime time.
Look, let me just say this. Yeah, exactly. Greg, you're not going to steal my thunder with this one, not even just by saying prime time, because it's more than just prime time.
Okay,
yeah, it is prime time, but it's the ability to be coached by this guy one-on-one. He has an interpersonal relationship with each and every one of his players. That program being a little bit smaller. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, and if you're the top cornerback in the nation, and not only that, what you see from these programs these days, it's not like back in the day. And, of course, back in the day, you still had a lot of black colleges, players from black colleges getting drafted. I mean, Mel Blount, speaking of defensive backs, and I can go on and on and on. But now, if you can play, and you saw what Deion was able to do at Jackson State his first year, and the fact that it's Deion Sanders, that program is going to get the notoriety. And if you're that good of a player and you're learning from the best cornerback to ever play the game, hey, these coaches and these scouts are going to find you. So, hey, Deion has just worked his swagger, and Deion is going to always recruit well while he's at Jackson State. I don't know how long he's going to stay at Jackson State. Now, he's already interviewed quietly for a couple other jobs this past season. I think he interviewed at TCU, which, hey, I would love for him to stay at Jackson State. But, at the end of the day, Deion is going to do what he thinks is best for him. To coach the Cowboys?
So I've heard that Deion should be – well – you think he's going to come for anything else?
Hey, excuse me. Check this out. I wouldn't be mad about that.
There's only one position you put Deion in. He's a head man. He's a motivator and program.
Well, see, that's it right there. That's it right there. And I remember one time when they were talking about. I think Troy Aikman could be a great coach. You know what I'm saying? I like the way he calls games as far as a color analyst.
Money he's making in the booth too much.
Yeah,
too easy.
I know, right? But at one time they were talking about Michael Irvin because of the type of leader he was, and the fact. And that's the thing with a head coach. Of course, you have to know the intricacies of the game and the ins and outs and clock management and time management. But you have to know how to manage personalities, which Deion knows how to do. And you have to be a motivator, which you just stated. Deion is a motivator. Again, what he was able to do in his first year at Jackson State, and just imagine what he's going to do moving forward with the recruits he's going to get and continue to get. But
and also
for him to be able to motivate, I wouldn't necessarily be against that because what you do as a head coach, Eddie, in a situation like that, you have to be a leader of men, for one, and you don't have to be a genius as far as knowing everything about offense and defense. Of course, Deion knows a lot. He coached at the high school level. So for him to coach the Dallas Cowboys, I think that would be a great move because I think he knows how to interact with the players. I think he would definitely be great at interacting with the players, for one. He would be great at motivating. And then what you do, you surround yourself with great coaches, and then you continue to learn in the process of motivating, being a leader, making critical decisions, and things of that sort. So I'm not totally against someone like that. You remember I said that he should get the job at Florida State before he took the Jackson State job. Remember I was in there saying that he should have.
Need to see him coach at a major college football program before.
You think Florida State regrets
wants
that?
to take a swing on. Why wouldn't you? I mean, when you look at what he does at Jackson State, you look at how he's not only able to motivate the players, but he's able to connect with these guys.
Absolutely.
He knows what they're feeling. He knows how they grew up. He knows what they've been through. He not only has he experienced a lot of that stuff himself, he's seen it all at the NFL level. This guy's been a great teammate for a long time. He knows people.
He knows how to put himself.
People that play football.
Absolutely, and he knows how to put himself.
And where they come from.
He knows how to put himself in their shoes. And the thing about that is, when you're a player and you have a coach like Deion Sanders that's speaking to you and telling you something, your ears are going to perk up that much more because he has instant credibility. You're talking about the best cornerback of all time, one of the best football players to ever do it, Super Bowl champion. So if you're a player, he has, now not saying that you're not going to listen to your head coach, any head coach you have, but with Deion, you're really going to listen, and he's going to make sure you listen. And like you said, and that's what I like to say, he's going to put himself in those guys' shoes, not only on the college level, I think he would also be able to do that with the Dallas Cowboys, to your point. So not ready to kick Mike McCarthy out the door just yet. I'm going to give him one more year and see what happens. But I'm not adverse to
kick him
Deion.
out the day he was hired.
I know I was. But, of course, we'll see what happens this year. But Deion, hey, why not?
I just thought that was interesting that you've got a couple of heavyweights here in the ring when you talk about Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban from two major Power 5 programs, and somehow in the crossfire, Deion Sanders and Jackson State take a slug. It just goes to tell you where Prime has that program.
Absolutely.
And it's on the radar, even for the big dogs.
Well, if you sign the top cornerback in the nation, of course you're going to get some kickback and some hate coming from these Division I coaches because, of course, I think Alabama was the second choice for the guy, wasn't he? What's his name? Hunter? I know his last name is Hunter. I know that. But I think Nick Saban, he's feeling the heat from everyone. And with these NIL rules, with it being legal now, and these players having more control, I think he's just feeling the pressure, and he's trying to get out ahead of it before 2, 3, 4, 5 years because he wants to keep his reign as the top program in college football. So we'll see what happens. I'm Greg. That's Eddie. You're listening to The Sports Court, the show where we keep it 100% of the time. Now, Eddie, of course, we'll see what plays out in that matchup with A&M. Again, A&M is going to have to prove it on the field. So Jimbo has really put himself out there. He's talking a lot of noise about Nick Saban. So we'll see what happens on the field, and we'll see how that plays out. But, of course, the NBA is in full swing right now. It's in full swing right now. And, of course, tonight we have the Golden State Warriors who are looking to knock off the Dallas Mavericks and my favorite player, Luka. But, of course, Golden State is my squad. That's who I picked to win it all. And I'm going to continue to roll with the Golden State Warriors, even though Boston is looking mighty formidable right now, and they're playing the Miami Heat right now. Now, let's harken back real quick before we talk about the present series right now, Eddie. But what's your take? Remember when we were in here not long ago, and remember when Brett was in here, when Brett picked Phoenix, Brett Thompson, who will probably be in next week because Eddie has something to do next week, so he probably won't be in next week. So Brett Thompson will probably be in here next week. And if Brett can't make it, I'm going to be in here solo doing it by myself. But, hey, so look forward to you coming back the week after that. But remember, Eddie, when I was always in here talking about, for some reason, I just do not believe in Phoenix. I think great team, regular season team. You've never heard me pick Phoenix to win it all, and you've never heard me just gloat and just give Phoenix that much praise because I've always been under the ilk, like, let's see them do it in the playoffs. And I remember Brett was in here. He picked Phoenix, and I said it's just something about Phoenix going back to the 90s, and as great as Charles Barkley was, but it's just something about Phoenix. They have these high-powered teams and these offensive teams and during the regular season, but then when they get to the playoffs, of course he had to deal with Barkley, and he had to deal with he had to deal with Jordan, and he had to deal with Olajuwon at that time as well. And not that the 90s have anything to do with right now, but it's just something about Phoenix that just never sold me that they were going to win it all. And I always thought, I said, let's see if Chris Paul runs out of gas, as great as he's been. And Phoenix disappointed me, man. Phoenix disappointed me big time. And now Golden State has a clean path to the finals because Dallas, as much as I love Luka, Dallas, they're just not ready right now. Now, what do you think about Phoenix and their situation as far as them losing?
Well, they seemingly turned into a pumpkin overnight. Like midnight struck. And what really happened was a Devin Booker injury came at a really crucial time. It was a bad time. And Chris Paul did not do well when Booker was out. And I think that really hurt his confidence. They never seemed to be the same Suns team after that. You could say they ran out of gas. I think it was a combination of their confidence and also, running out of gas. Chris Paul seemingly looking like an older player.
He turned 37 and immediately looked 37.
This is what you
that same day.
This is what you fear whenever you have a team that Chris Paul is a linchpin on. The Rockets went through the same thing when they had Chris Paul. He was a linchpin. You wonder if he's going to wear down or if he's going to break down at the end of the season. This time he wore down and it ended up all collapsing on Phoenix. But you got to give a lot of credit to Dallas because Luka smelled blood in the water, and they really went at Phoenix's throat. They did not let up one bit, and it was an impressive series victory for Dallas. And Luka seemingly grew up. But as we're seeing now in this next series against Golden State, Dallas
does that hurt Chris Paul's legacy before we move on?
Hurt legacy? No.
He's still one of the best of all time.
Like we talked about,
but it's 2 years in a row.
He's one of these guys that's he's right there with Marino, with Barkley, with these great with
Iverson never won a ring.
Karl Malone.
Iverson never won a ring.
With these great players that never won a championship but are still maybe top 5 at their position.
I got you. I agree with that.
Time.
I agree with that.
But you get into the series with Golden State, and right out of the bat, Golden State reminds you, how they are able to just dissect teams offensively. Where they use Kevon Looney, realizing that there is weakness on the interior for the defense for the Mavericks, using Looney in a multitude of ways, finding him open near the basket, making you fear the perimeter shot when really the goal is to get the ball inside the paint to a Looney or to a Draymond Green, and that's where they're eating them up big time. And they're really frustrating Luka, which is what a experienced playoff championship Warriors team is what they do.
Absolutely, Eddie. And you know what? Kudos to Jason Kidd for getting this Dallas Mavericks team past Phoenix. I love the job that he's doing. He's giving them an attitude. And I just think right now they're just overmatched. And this is their first time. And I like what Jason Kidd has said, in the midst of all this, hey, this is the beginning, not the end. And so they're using this as a learning experience to move forward. So they'll probably get swept tonight. I mean, it all hinges on what Golden State wants to do. Do they want it to be a gentleman's sweep where, okay, they win at home in San Francisco in a few days or whatever. If they come out and want to finish this tonight, they will. But Golden State, they've been known to take their foot off the gas. But who's the president of the Andrew Wiggins fan club? You're looking at him right here. And I've been talking about it. Hey, there's been times on this show, and Eddie can tell you, and anybody that's been paying attention can tell you, it's been times I've brought up Andrew Wiggins' name over the years when no one was talking about Andrew Wiggins because I saw exactly what I'm seeing now. Now, of course, in Minnesota, he wasn't put in the best situation, even though he had Karl Anthony Towns. But he's just not that type of player where I guess he feels that he can carry the entire franchise on his shoulders. Now, I think what's happening now is I think since he's gotten older, because it used to be a time where Andrew Wiggins, people questioned his motor. Now, you cannot question his motor on both sides of the ball. And I think a lot of that, I don't know what it is. I think the fact that he's coming into his prime, he's 26 years old right now. He's coming into his prime. He's feeling stronger. He's feeling more confident. A lot of that has to do with where he's playing, being under the tutelage of Draymond Green, Steph Curry, and Steve Kerr, of course. I remember when he first got to Golden State, and one of the first things I noticed that something that didn't happen when he was in Minnesota, when he wasn't a playmaker. And I used to always say, you look at his stat line, and he would have 30 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist. I'm like, bruh, I used to watch the games. I'm like, Go for a rebound. Look at how athletic you are. Now, if you look at him, he's going after every rebound. You seeing him on the defensive end. He's competing. And what he's doing to Luka right now, and Luka needs more help. I mean, he needs that second superstar. And they're learning from this, of course. They'll probably get swept tonight. It's all up to Golden State. But what he's doing, he's forcing Luka, he's shading him to his left hand and making Luka take ill-advised shots or shots that's very uncomfortable. And so even though if you look at Luka's stats, you're like, damn, he's still getting this and getting that. But when Andrew Wiggins is playing against him,
laborious points. Like, I mean, he's got to work real hard to get what he's getting.
And especially
Warriors
against Wiggins.
Are so good at making you do that, like taking you out of your offensive rhythm and forcing you to laboriously grind out whatever points you get while they are rain-making away.
And you know, to your point about that, and to your point about that, and the point I was making about Wiggins now.
Demoralizing. It's not surprising that no surprise to me that they're down 3-0 whenever you're getting demoralized. Steph Curry is 180 and running down the court before the ball even hits the bottom of the net.
Right.
I mean, it's like they already know they've got your asses in a can and whipped up, and there's nothing you can do about it. They're preparing for a finals matchup against, you know,
we're going to talk about that in a second too.
Toughest teams.
But
in the
to finish
NBA.
my point on Wiggins and the fact that I think that he's been the difference in this series, especially because the way he's been able to contain Luka when he's actually guarding him. But again, now he has that high motor. And what I was saying about what I noticed when he was at Minnesota as well, they never let him bring the ball up and initiate the offense. I remember when he first got to Golden State, even though Steph was there and all these players was there, of course, Klay wasn't on the team at the time. And Klay never really brings the ball up anyway and initiates the offense. But even though Draymond was there, Steve Kerr, he instilled that confidence in him from day one. Because I think Steve Kerr said, I think he pulled him aside and was like, hey, man, you're the number one pick. You were the number one pick. You were the best high school player in the nation the year you came out of high school. You have all the athleticism in the world. It's in your genes. Your dad played in the NBA. Your mom is an Olympic track champion from Canada. I mean, utilize that athleticism. So he would give him the ball and say, you bring the ball up the court. You make plays. So now you look at Andrew Wiggins. He makes plays for others, something he didn't even look to do while he was in Minnesota. He's always going after rebounds. He's energized on the defensive end. And you see that dunk the other night. What I used to get frustrated with him about when he was at Minnesota, when he would drive to the basket.
What they called an offensive foul. Is that the one you're talking about?
Well, they initially called offensive foul, and then they reversed it. But the fact now is when he goes down the lane, he's licking his chops. He's looking to do damage. And it's like, bro, I'm trying to dunk this. I'm trying to yam on you.
Well, that's part of understanding.
He didn't do that. He would try to roll. He would try to, do a layup or get to the basket. Now he's trying to yam on you, man. And I like that attitude. I like that forcefulness he's playing with now. I think Draymond and those guys has rubbed off on him. Plus he feels, again, I think he's gotten older. He's stronger. He's growing into his body. He just feels more confident playing with a team, and he knows he can win right now. And to your point, Eddie, about the Golden State Warriors and what they do, what I like about Golden State, and I'm glad that Otto Porter Jr.'s foot injury is not as bad as I thought it was, because he's been playing some tremendous basketball. And you still don't have Iguodala. You may get him back for the finals, and I think that would be a big asset, because when things go awry, he's a guy not only with championship pedigree, but here's a guy that can also give you what he can give you. He should be well rested right now, so he should have fresh legs. And even though he's been out with a neck injury, he's still conditioning and things like that. So he should have fresh legs. And then when things go awry, he's a guy that can settle things down for you. He has the flair for the dramatic. He can knock down a big three in pressure moments. But where Golden State is going to have to hang their hats, and where they really hang their hats, when they turn it up on the defensive end and they're swarming and they're just tenacious on the defensive end. And I think that's where they're going to win that championship, is playing tremendous, tenacious defense to go along with all those players that can score: Jordan Poole, Steph, Klay, and all those guys. And the thing about it, of course, them playing Dallas is not the same, Eddie, as playing Boston or playing Miami, because those guys, they can switch on defense, they're athletic, and they're just better teams. But the thing about Golden State, why I still give them the edge no matter who they play. I mean, you have Miami, who's always going to take lulls and scoring. You never know what Jimmy Butler's going to do with his knee situation now. So you never know what you're going to get from Miami as far as scoring is concerned. And we're going to talk about that series, how they've been up and down, and it's kind of been uncharacteristic of them not bringing it on the defensive end every night. But the thing you're going to get from Golden State, you have a multitude of guys who can score at will, and they're going to move that ball around. So you're not going to play a team where you're going to be running around chasing guys like you're going to have to do against Golden State. And you're going to always have a game plan. Yeah, you have a great defense. You're going to have a game plan. But Mike Tyson said, you know what Mike Tyson once said? He said, everybody has a game plan until they get hit in the mouth. And when they're dropping them haymakers from three, and they're pretty much demoralizing you, to use your word right there, and you're trading threes for twos, and then they're turning it up on the defensive side of the ball, plus they're making that extra pass, plus you have a number of guys who can initiate the offense, Draymond, Jordan Poole, Steph. I mean, Clay has to get going, of course, which he will. I just think their championship pedigree at the end is going to win over. But I'll tell you this, man, the Boston Celtics right now are looking very, very good. Now, they actually beat Milwaukee, Eddie, without – Giannis. So Giannis is not playing right now. And that's another reason I say Golden State at the end of the day. Not only their championship pedigree, and they've been there and done that. I love Marcus Smart. I love what the Celtics are doing. I think they ultimately win that series. But either way it goes, if Miami wins the series, they're a juggernaut on the defensive side of the ball too. But I just think the Celtics, I just think Golden State will have too much firepower for them on the offensive side of the ball. And again, that extra pass and that ball movement, these teams haven't seen anything like this. And you haven't seen these guys, you haven't seen guys drain threes and just really just demoralize you like this team can do. But it's going to start on the defensive end. But you don't have Giannis. You don't have Giannis in the finals this year. You don't have Kevin Durant in the finals this year. That's a story for another day. I'm not going to waste my time talking about the Kyrie situation anymore right now. You don't have Embiid and Harden in the playoffs this year. So you have Jason Tatum, who's striving and he's thriving and he's a superstar, but he's been inconsistent. He's hit or miss in these playoffs. But when he's on after a loss, when he comes back in the playoffs, he's averaging like close to 30, 6 and 7 or something like that. So he turns it up a notch after a loss. Now, can he do it night in and night out? But of course, Giannis is not there, so that bodes well for the Warriors moving forward because of that experience with Milwaukee. And, of course, the Bucks did not have Chris Middleton in that situation. Okay, I've said enough. What's your take on Boston and their chances, or what's your take on Boston and Miami right now? Just go for it, bro.
If you look at the way the series is going, I feel like either team could come out of this series still. They're back and forth, trading punches with each other. You look at the last game last night where Boston essentially jumps on Miami early right out of the gate. Miami never able to recover, and you kind of felt like, they did fight a little bit, but you felt like in the middle of the third quarter,
Miami didn't show up last night.
They wrote that game off. Yeah, it was done.
It was 18-1.
They started to put up a fight in the second quarter, but yeah, ultimately that game was over midway through the third. But that doesn't mean that Miami can't come right around and win the next game. But the way the series is going, it's back and forth. Each team takes one game. It doesn't matter if they're playing, in Boston or if they're playing in Miami. And whichever team does come out of this, I think there's still going to be a tough matchup for the Warriors, who essentially got a cakewalk.
Very tough.
I think against a Dallas team that, when you're playing against the Warriors, they're very good at guarding down low and at the perimeter. And when you're a team that scores either right at the bucket or behind the three-point line, and you don't really incorporate a two-point game, we've seen this plague teams that have to go up and play against the Warriors in these big playoff series. We've seen it plague the Rockets before, and you're seeing it plague the Dallas Mavericks as they're constantly trying to get to the basket with Luka Doncic, trying to find cutters to the basket, or they're shooting big three-point shots. If the threes aren't falling and if you're not getting the calls, like Luka hasn't really felt like, I think he's got the calls this series. I know he'd tell you that. I'm not so sure if I agree with him. I just know it's playoff basketball. That's how it goes. And that's just not a recipe for beating the Warriors. I think both these teams in the East both have a much better chance of taking the Warriors deep in a series and winning. Than the Dallas Mavericks did have of beating Steph Curry and company. But
I agree,
I'm still
Eddie.
not certain which one of these teams is going to come out. You love the way Boston has their two superstars with a very tough and gritty, second role player and second team built around those two guys, and you show how that it shows in a series how tough they are, because whenever a guy's hurt or banged up, you don't see them fall apart. Marcus
and they've
Smart,
been banged up.
They're missing Marcus Smart right now, but you see other guys fill in and pick up the slack, and they're able to still win these big games.
Well,
and then with Miami, real quick before I let you go,
okay,
Greg,
go ahead.
It's just so impressive to see where they are, where Eric Spoelstra has these guys, how good of a coach he really is. He's coached all different types of teams, from the teams that were younger to the ones that were superstar laden, the veteran laden, and now he's got a team where they went after Jimmy Butler. Not a lot of people were sure how that was going to go. A lot of people thought maybe they should have been in the James Harden sweepstakes, or maybe they should have traded away Jimmy Butler or passed on Jimmy Butler. But if you look at them, they stuck it out. They got Jimmy. They built the team around him. I think you got to give a lot of credit to them for seeing in Jimmy Butler what a lot of people really didn't see, which was Jimmy Butler. They saw Jimmy Butler as a great player, but not as a player you could insert as a foundational cornerstone piece and then start to build around. Miami essentially did that, and it's working. They've gotten to the brink of the finals, here 2 years in a row. Could they bust through and go in and maybe win one? It's a possibility, but you got to give a lot of credit to these guys for recognizing and seeing what, like I said, what we didn't see in Dwayne as being that guy. Because I got to admit.
You mean Jimmy Butler?
I mean, Jimmy, I'm thinking of Dwayne Wade.
That's all good.
But Jimmy, seeing Jimmy Butler as that guy, because the Rockets, they saw him as that guy. They wanted to go get Jimmy Butler. You think about how things could have been different here in Houston if they would have been able to add Jimmy Butler.
Well, Philly kind of gave up on him as well.
Right, to the squad that they had, because if you think about that Rockets team, what they lacked real toughness. I mean, they got a lot of it from P.J. Tucker, but you insert Jimmy Butler, and he is everything James Harden is not. And then he also gives you a very good mid-range game, which is one thing that I think Golden State's going to struggle with when they're playing both these teams, whichever one it may be, the Heat or the Celtics, is their ability to score from all three levels of the basketball court, not just in, down low, or behind the three-point line.
And that's the quick point I was going to make about Golden State, about they don't get enough credit for. Of course, we look at them as a three-point shooting team, but they actually attack the rack, and they score in the paint, and they're killing Dallas right now inside the paint. So whoever they play, they're not just going to be a team that moves the ball around the perimeter and just jacks up threes and jack up threes. I mean, they're going to actually take you off the dribble, and they have guys that can do that in Jordan Poole and Steph and Wiggins and guys like that. Now, we'll see if they get Gary Payton, the second back, as well, to help out on the defensive side of things. But as far as Miami is concerned, now Jimmy Butler, when people don't remember, well, I'm sure people remember, but when he first came into the league, Jimmy Butler was more noted for being a defensive player, strictly a defensive player. He really worked on his offensive game and became a great offensive player. Now, the thing about it, sometimes he disappears on the offensive side of things, and sometimes he can give you 40 points. But he's definitely a guy that's brought the right attitude to Miami to go along with Spoelstra and his coaching acumen, of course, and, of course, Pat Riley. And that's why it was so surprising last night to see them come out there last night and not really take that game as serious to start the game. You knew Boston was going to come out of there last night, was going to come out last night and really, really try to – I mean, they could not go down 3-1. So if you're Miami –
Yeah, going back to Miami, you
yeah,
can't
I
do
mean,
that.
I mean, if you're Miami last night, I think you missed a golden opportunity knowing that Boston was going to come out with all guns blazing.
But also
and
think about this too, Greg.
Right
I
now.
mean, think about this too. You got to make it to the end of what could be a very rugged 7-game series. You still, if you get past that, you still got to think about beyond that and playing in the NBA Finals. But it's a long series. It's a 7-game series. They built themselves a 2-1 lead. Once things were going south in that game, they had the ability, the cushion to say, hey, we can take Jimmy out a little early, let him rest and be done in this game, because he needs to be healthy for the remainder of the series. If they're in a game that's nip and tuck, the whole way, Jimmy's forced to gut it out and play the entire game, and they still lose by, let's say, a basket, then you feel like, Jimmy gave it all he's got. He's not getting any better. You look at the one silver lining in this situation, they got to rest Jimmy, and maybe that little bit of extra rest that he got instead of having to grind it out in that game, maybe that pays dividends in a Game 6 or Game 7.
Well, and I mean, the thing about it is, back in Game 5, they're going back to Miami. So, Miami now, they're going to be very desperate. At some point, one of these teams is going to have to win 2 in a row. And so the thing about it, the longer this series draws out, the more susceptible these guys become to actually aggravating these injuries that they already have. I mean, you see how physical it is right now, and you're only giving Golden State, assuming Golden State finish off the Mavericks, I mean, you're only giving them more time to actually rest. But one thing I will say, both of these teams, when they turn it up, Bam Adebayo, he's going to have to bring it every night instead of every now and then. I mean, he's going to have to be consistent in what he gives them. But I just think at the end of the day, if I'm Golden State, not that I mean, both of these teams, like you said, can actually beat Golden State. Let's just keep it 100 right there. Both of these teams can actually beat Golden State. But if I'm Golden State, I'd rather play Miami for the simple fact, and I'm not going to say it's a simple fact because you never know what you're going to get from Tyler Hero, or you never know what you're going to get. Of course, P.J. Tucker. I mean, on the defense side of the ball.
Or even Adebayo,
Or Adebayo, Jimmy Butler.
Who could be downright dominant at times, or sometimes he's a ghost on the stat sheet. You're like,
right. But then you have somebody like Boston. You have Marcus Smart. He's a dog. So he's going to be there on the defensive end as well. But again, they're going to have to run around and chase these guys. I don't care how good they can switch. I mean, Golden State is always going to make that extra pass. And then when you have Draymond,
I don't think they'll be able to sneak Kevon Looney down in the paint against Al Horford like they are against Dallas.
Horford, you have Robert Williams. So even if Golden State, even if they do drive through the lane right now, which Dallas offers no resistance right now, you're going to have to deal with the likes of Robert Williams and Al Horford. But once you get those guys to collapse and you kick it back out for that 3 ball, and like I said, once they hit a few of those and go on those runs, I mean, again, you might come in with a game plan, but once you get hit, and then not having that experience as well, as great as Jason Tatum is and as great as Jaylen Brown is, we'll see what happens, just say, if they get down and those threes and those haymakers start getting rained on them and Golden State starts playing with that championship swagger and that championship confidence, or you going to still stay as confident? That's what's good, because you haven't been there before. As great as you are, you haven't been there before where you're playing against a team that's been there a number of times, and so the situation is not going to be too big for them. But I will say this, Boston, in my opinion, poses the biggest threat because of the exploits of Jason Tatum and the greatness and the way he can just score the ball and just take over a game, and Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. And I mean,
when you look
that's a tough matchup.
When you look at
both of them are really, but man,
which team you'd rather face? Clearly, of course, you'd rather face Miami in this situation, because you look at Boston. They do have two guys you can consider bona fide superstars. They're used to playing in big games. They're at or near the height of their their prime or of their level of performance, where these guys can they can really drop dimes. You feel like they can. They may not shoot you out of the building like the Warriors can, but they can get into a little bit of a back-and-forth three-point contest.
They can, because of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
And that can keep them in the game. And as we know, previous years with Golden State, the three-pointers aren't always falling. They will have that game where they're struggling, and Boston doesn't have to play the 3-ball with them, so they can take advantage of those situations, playing a different style of basketball, not having to rely on the big shot and take advantage of those opportunities to get some leads in those games, steal some wins that way.
Speaking of the three-point shot, I heard J.J. Redick say this, who's one of the best three-point shooters of all time, and I heard him say this. The fact of the matter is, it's going to be a very intriguing matchup no matter who plays, assuming Golden State gets there, blah, blah, blah. And the thing about it is, both teams are going to have to bring their A game. I mean, that's the thing about it right there. But what's going to have to happen, no matter who plays who, is you're going to have to turn it up on the defensive side of the ball. And of course, we know Boston can do that, and we know Golden State can do that as well. They can run around, and they can pretty much be in your clothes. So, and Boston can do the same thing, and they have some tenacity with them and some size and some grit, starting with Marcus Smart. And, of course, you have Draymond anchoring that over there in Golden State. But what Golden State, in my opinion, is going to have to do, they're going to have to play smarter, man, because Boston is so great on defense. Miami is so great on defense. You can't come out there lackadaisical and making these ill-advised passes. You're going to have to be honed in on every possession, and I shouldn't have to tell them that. I mean, this is a team that's won 3 championships. Hopefully, during this time off, when they're able to get some rest, unless Dallas makes a miraculous comeback, hopefully they realize that going into the next series, and you can't go out there just being all loosey-goosey and throwing the ball around and this and that, because Boston is not going to let you do that. Miami is not going to let you do that. So you have to really hone in on taking care of the basketball and valuing every single possession. I think if Golden State do that and they really hone in, I think I still think they're the favorites. But as far as Miami, again, we'll see what happens tomorrow night. I think they're going to come out with a lot of energy. I think they're going to come out because they're playing at home, of course.
Yeah, they come and win on their home court. I mean,
then the way they played
they're in the
last
driver's
game.
seat. They need to win 1 or 2.
And then the way they played last game. So that series right there, I think what bodes well for Golden State, and I keep mentioning Golden State because we're down to the last few teams, and obviously they seem like the team that's going to come out of the West and meet one of these two teams right here. So, but what they're going to have a lot of rest, and they're going to be able to heal up, be rested, be fresh, all those guys, hopefully get a couple of guys back. And Miami, if they take this to 7 games, you never know. Not only will they be, or Miami or Boston, not only as tough as they are, as well coached as they are, not only do you have to worry about them being physically fatigued, also mentally fatigued, even though they'll still have a few days off because the finals start, June 2nd? But you coming out for a rugged series like that, I mean, game 1, you might just not be on your P's and Q's.
But
like
what about
would.
this, too? Yeah, what if it does go 7 and the Warriors, like a good tool
rusty?
left outside, overnight here in Texas where it's humidity, where it's humid, there's a high humidity percentage in the air. What if they have a little bit of rusty and, whoever comes in there, Miami, Boston, they're able to steal a game.
Yeah, because they're not as rusty because they've recently played. But that's why I always say, and that's why you've always heard me say, it's going to come down to getting stops and being tenacious on the defense side of the ball and attacking the boards, rebounding. I mean, who's going to attack the boards? Now, where Golden State has the disadvantage against both of these teams, especially Boston, is the fact that these guys have Robert Williams. They have, Horford, who's playing at a very high level and gives them exactly what they need. But again, so they're just going to have to be tenacious in the sense they're just going to have to just be tenacious and attacking the boards, getting position on some of these bigger guys, and just outworking them. So what's going to have to happen, the key is in the finals period, is just who can be more tenacious on defense, who can play smarter basketball, and who cannot make the ill-advised turnovers, but you're going to have to bring it on the defensive side of the ball. But again, having said all that, like I said, I think Boston poses the biggest threat to Golden State, even though Miami is, they're the number 1 seed, obviously, and they're no pushover by no means. I just think they might have lulls in the scoring department. You never know what you're going to get from Tyler Hero, 6th man of the year. Is he going to get the necessary minutes to have his imprint on the game as well? So I just think they can have lulls in the scoring department.
They can,
even though they can turn it up on the defense
I also
side.
absolutely, I feel like they can frustrate the Warriors if they want to defend the 3-point line and then let Adebayo sort of have free reign down low by the basket. They're still going to be hard to score on.
Yeah.
They could give the Warriors problems. They may be missing shots, but they could be forcing misses on the other end. So I certainly wouldn't count them out, not at all, especially whenever stylistically they're so polar opposite from what Golden State does that sometimes those end up being the best matchups because both teams play a style of basketball that the other team really isn't equipped to play with or stop.
Right. And I think Golden State is going to have to be quick. They're going to have to be fast against either one of these teams. And they're going to, of course, it goes without saying, they're going to have to make shots. But they got to have to play smarter and play tenacious defense. And then I think their championship pedigree and that championship, just that championship swagger, I think they'll be able to pull it out. But Boston
certainly
is
going
very,
to make them
very
the
dangerous.
favorite. Coming in with all that experience.
There's a lot of people think Boston is still going to win it. And which I really can't argue with the way Boston has looked and with, again, as great as Marcus Smart is on the defensive side of the ball and as great as they are as a team defensively, as well coached as they are, that's almost a pick'em series, to be quite honest with you. But again, where I give Golden State the edge is the fact when it gets down to it at the end of the day in close games. You look at Memphis. As great as Memphis was, they mucked the games up a lot of times with their physicality. But what happened was at the end of a lot of these games, and of course they played without Ja Morant that last game, but these other guys stepped up who probably wouldn't have had as many opportunities if Ja Morant was there. But what happened was Golden State's championship pedigree and their composure in the latter stages of the game got them through. So that's what's going to have to happen against either one of these teams that haven't been there. They're going to have to be composed when some of these threes step from down their half court and these haymakers start hitting you. Yeah, I know you're a great player and you have, you're a superstar player, Jason Tatum and all this and that. But what's going to happen to your team? Are you going to stay focused in the crucial moments of the game, and are you going to be able to make the necessary plays? And where I think Golden State, they've been there, done that, and they're going to be able to keep their composure.
Yeah, they're going to run. They're going to run you up and down the court. They're going to wear you down, and
run around everywhere.
A big reason why they're so hard to beat is because you feel like with Golden State and their ability to sink the big shot, the deep shot, over and over again, is there's no lead that you could have that's really insurmountable. You
trading threes for twos.
You watch Boston, and they really open up like an 18-point lead on the Miami Heat, and the Miami Heat really aren't equipped to come back from that big of a deficit against a team like Boston.
Right.
Where if they were to do that at Golden State, we've seen Golden State erase deficits like that and actually take the lead in as little as one quarter of basketball.
That third quarter.
Yeah, and that's another thing about Golden State that needs to be mentioned is the way they are closing out quarters, the way they are closing out halves. That is what championship basketball is made of. You think you've got them right where you want them, and they'll storm back at the end of the half, take the lead or at least make it close. So you were thinking you were in a position of taking this great Warriors team to the locker room with a lead, and now you're going there with them either nipping at your heels or now you're nipping at theirs, and you're wondering how did this happen? But that's just the magic of what Golden State does.
Absolutely, Eddie. And the thing about it, and that's a testament to Steve Kerr, because whatever he says to these guys at halftime, and that's the point I'm making, is like, are you going to stay focused? And I think Boston and Miami, they have that tough grit to where I don't think they will be just totally, even though they haven't been there, I think their talent and their tenacity and the way they're well coached, I think they'll be able to hang around and hang in there, and I don't think they will lose it mentally. But we shall see, because it's easier said than done. They haven't been there yet. But a testament to Steve Kerr, whatever he says at halftime, the adjustments that this guy makes, but the way he gets in these guys' ear, says the right things. They come out after the half in the third quarter, and it's almost like two different teams. I don't care who they're playing. It's like, if you don't survive that onslaught in the third quarter, and that's what these teams are going to have to guard against. I don't care what's going on in the first half. You have to guard against that onslaught in the third quarter, and you have to come out locked in and focused and stay focused on the defensive side of the ball, and don't let them. But for some reason, Golden State, they just find a way to get what they want in that third quarter and pretty much just do it.
How could you not listen to Steve Kerr? He is he watched and played with, the greatest to ever do it in some big matchups.
Played with Jordan, played under Phil Jackson.
There's a reason why he's as good as he is and why they're as good as they are. Now, before we move on and talk about the draft lottery, Richard Johnson here with a comment. He said, "Swish, swish. Can you hear the sound of the broom? Golden State's going to the finals with a sweep. Get the dustpan ready for Luka and the Mavericks.
Broom
do you
life.
Think it's over tonight?
Broom life. Well, again,
or do they let them get a gentleman's game?
Yeah, see, that's the question. And I really don't want to make a prediction right there, because you never know with Golden State.
And
like we
were talking about earlier, is that the smart thing for Golden State to do, so that they make sure they get that extra game and keep them legs fresh?
I know. Well, you would think. Now, I'm talking about that championship pedigree and that championship swagger and their experience. But one thing we do know about them, having said all that.
Or they may want to get it wrapped up before Memorial Day weekend and rent a boat and get out on the lake and have a good old time.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, to answer your question, I think they get it done tonight. But I'll say this. It would not surprise me one bit if they came out there laying an egg, having about 20 turnovers. They can't do that. You can't give Dallas life. If I'm Golden State, I go in with the attitude, let's finish this series off so we can get the necessary rest, for one. Also, so we can guard against possible injury with the series moving forward. So you have to be smart. If you're a championship team, you have to come in smart and ready to finish business tonight. Go ahead and put Dallas out of their misery. But make no mistake about it, man. I like what Jason Kidd has done. I like the attitude that he's brought to this team. But Dallas is just not ready. And again, no matter what Golden State does, sweep or not, they have to realize, and I know they do, next series is going to be a whole lot tougher. But I still picked them to win it all. Like I did. I picked them in preseason. Of course, I was anticipating Clay coming back and Wiseman. But I picked them in preseason, so to make the finals, and so it looks like they're going to do that.
I got to give you credit for that. You did call
I did do that
early on in the year.
Yes, I did, Eddie.
Now,
Thanks a lot.
before we get out of here a little bit early on a Yard Pimp Tuesday, you're listening to the Sports Court with Gregory Beatty and Eddie Cox. I want to talk about the draft lottery. Houston Rockets scoring the 3rd pick in the draft lottery. And I don't know if this is how it's going to shake out or what. The Rockets have already put out, in the media, they're open to a trade. They own not only the 3rd pick, but also the 17th pick.
Okay.
I believe from Brooklyn.
Okay.
That's going to go to the Houston Rockets as well. So they've got some
don't get me started on Brooklyn
ammunition. They feel like they can trade back or trade that pick entirely, which it is going to be a coveted pick, especially since what I'm hearing, a lot of these mock drafts have what some people have graded as the best player in the draft being right there for the taking for the Houston Rockets and Pablo Banchero.
Yeah. Yeah, hey, you know what? When they got the 3rd pick, obviously I wanted them to get the 1st pick to get Chet Holmgren to pair him with Jalen Green, and I mean that would be special for years to come. And it still can happen because you never know because Oklahoma who got the 1st pick?
I feel like Chet
Orlando
Holmgren
got the 1st pick,
yeah.
right? So to your point, I mean I'm about to get to your point about that. But Orlando, who knows? They might take Jaden Ivey, pair him with Jalen Suggs, even though Chet Holmgren played with Jalen Suggs even in high school, I think. But they may, and you might form that backcourt. You're talking about Jaden Ivey, a guy that has Russell Westbrook type skills. I mean, he could actually make plays for others, a la Jalen Suggs. So you have 2 wing players. He's a dynamic playmaker who can get to the rack, who can play some defense. So they may just surprise some people while everybody thinks they're going to automatically take a big in that situation, whether it be Jabari Smith. I mean, they may just change the whole game and go with Jaden Ivey, who can be a superstar at that 2 guard to go along with Jalen Suggs. I hope that's what they do. And then that leaves the number 2 pick with OKC and who they could take Jabari Smith. But Chet Holmgren would be gone by the time the Rockets pick. But to your point about Pablo Banchero with the Rockets, once the Rockets got the 3rd pick, I thought about it. I said, you know what? Hey, I like him too. I like him too. 6'10", 250. I mean, can do it all. And he's only going to get better. He's more NBA ready than any of these guys right now.
I think that's what turns you on about him the most. You look at a guy, he plays at Duke, big program, big guy. He actually plays a little bit taller than what he actually is. And he's exactly the kind of guy that they need where they can maybe plug in at that 4 or 5 position where he adds the toughness and some defensive clout there where the Rockets have lacked that entirely. That would make Christian Wood 100% expendable when you can replace him with a guy like Banchero.
Yeah.
Especially because, look, they did feel like, the Rockets feel
and
like
you can get some pieces for him.
The Rockets feel like they struck gold with Alperen Şengün.
Yes, they
did. The only problem with Şengün is he's not athletic enough to be the type of defender you need to play center night in and night out.
But I got you.
And so you got to go after a guy who's tougher. The thing about Holmgren is where he could develop into that guy. You see a small frame and you feel like, although he has a very high ceiling, he may also have the lowest floor out of all these guys because of his size and because of his ability, maybe his lack thereof, I should say, instead of ability, of being tough enough to grow at the NBA level.
No. See, that's just it about Holmgren, and that's one of the points I've always made. I mean, and then I'm going to get to your point about Banchero with the Rockets and how he fits with the Rockets. But that's one of the main things that I've always noticed about Chet Holmgren. He's very tough. He may be the toughest player in the draft, and even though he's 7'1", he's slender, but he gives you a guy that's a true shot blocker. I'm talking about he erases everything at the rim, but he also can handle the rock, play guard, can shoot the 3. He's versatile, and I mean, if it was me and I had my choice, I would take Holmgren. But I'll tell you what, and of course he has some growing to do, of course. And he's going to get stronger, and he's admitted that himself. He doesn't necessarily want to, not that he doesn't want to put on weight, but he's not looking to just bulk up too quick. Of course, as he gets older, he's going to naturally put on weight. But the fact that he can be so versatile and he can build tremendous defensive presence and can give you what you need on the perimeter as well. I mean, again, like I said, if he works on that mid-range game, I think he can be special, and he can handle the rock.
I mean,
he
if
can
you,
run the
if
floor.
it gets
I
to the
like him a
third
lot,
pick
man.
and he's still there and he's the best player available, the
Well,
Rockets
of
have to
course,
take him.
yeah.
I mean, without
Ben
a doubt.
Carroll,
But if
I like him a lot.
yeah, if he's gone, I mean, hell, he could go number one. Like I said, some
Yeah.
people feel like he's the most NBA ready. But Jabari Smith is another guy who just maybe, I don't know, a couple months ago might have been considered, the number one prospect to come off the board with the way he
Shot
can
40,
shoot.
yeah, from
and
Auburn.
he knows how to get his shot really
And he can
well.
shoot free throws
And
real good.
yeah, how that's coveted by NBA teams.
Right.
These guys who already have somewhat of a polished shot-making ability or the ability to create, which is definitely what he has. So you feel like right there, they're going to get either
Those are three great players at
Banchero,
the top.
Holmgren, or
Right.
Smith. And if either one of those guys you got to feel ecstatic about, although I got to admit,
agree.
I feel a little bit better about Smith and Banchero. But that's just because
I got you.
you look at the guy that's just so skinny and so frail, you wonder if he's going to be able to last in the NBA,
I think he
especially
is. I think
especially
he's gonna
for
be
a
great.
team like the Rockets who are going to need him to, at times, bang down low. You got to hope that he
I think he'll
becomes
be great with the
like an
Rockets.
Anthony Davis. You
Yeah,
you got to
no.
really hope that that's what he is.
I
'Cause
don't-
if he's anything less than that,
Yeah.
and I'm talking about Anthony minus the injuries,
Yeah.
if he's anything less than that, and he ends up being just a piece that's coming in off the bench late in his career, I think you feel like you missed with that.
Well,
pick.
honestly, I mean, I'm going to talk about Ben Carroll right here in a minute, and trust me, I don't fault you for liking those two guys because I think they're more polished and ready right now.
Well, and
I
then
like,
also
I
watching
like Chet Holmgren
watching
a lot,
Holmgren,
and I think
Holmgren
I
in
think
the,
he's going to be a great NBA player.
I think
and to
he
your
can
point,
too. It's just when
I mean, to your point about his frame, I mean, that's just it, though. I mean, that doesn't stop. I mean, he's still very tough. He goes after every rebound, so he can give you. I mean, he likes to bang. Believe it or not, he likes to bang. And again, he gives you in today's day and age where that 3-point shot is so prevalent. I mean, he gives you a guy that can actually not only can he give you what he can give you on the defensive side of things, and he's tougher, and he's very tough, and he likes to bang. He goes after every rebound. He does not shy away from contact. As a matter of fact, he looks for contact. But he can also, not only with Jalen Green and Porter Jr., but the thing that he can do, you can give him the ball and say, go get you a bucket, go give me a bucket, initiate, get your own shot, and he can pull up from three, or he can take you off the dribble and get to the rack at 7-1. I mean, you can't coach that.
The raw skills and the size are definitely there. The reason he's fallen down to 3 on my board is because I just would have liked to see it.
Because the
I would have
Rockets
liked.
got
Well,
3
no. I mean, I just mean as far as
I
like
know,
to
I'm
me, I
messing
think
with
he's the third best player is because
I think he's
I would have
first.
liked to have seen a little bit more out of him in the tournament. I felt like he could have brought some more magic.
I heard somebody else say that, but damn, if you look at his stats, I think one game he had, 18 rebounds, 17 points, 18 rebounds, 6 blocks. I think another game he had like 14 rebounds.
And hey, the rebounds,
His
that
team.
stuff is great. I like that, but
Gonzaga
he's not
wasn't a
going
team. I
to
told you that from
in
jump.
this day and age in the NBA. He's not going to rebound his way to
He's
an
a
all-star game.
playmaker at
He's-
7-1.
I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying those things have stood out to me where we've watched other guys who have
You ever
slipped
seen
down,
KD play?
who have slipped down. Yes, absolutely. Who have slipped down the draft board, but had great NCAA tournaments, and we've learned that at the NBA level they have that it factor.
I thought he had a good NCAA tournament,
And
to
Steph
tell you the
Curry
truth.
was one of those guys.
Well, I don't think it was more. I mean, if you really watch the tournament games, if you go back and watch the tournament games with Gonzaga, remember all season, I said I don't believe in Gonzaga because what happens is when you get into a one-off, a game where everybody can, I mean, the winner, they just didn't have the overall athleticism to compete with some of these teams. I mean, the basketball court is only so big, and when you have teams pressuring you full court and you don't have the foot speed, the overall foot speed, I don't care what you do in the regular season. That's why I never picked Gonzaga. But the way he played in a number of those games, in a couple of those games, I was impressed. I just don't think some of his teammates stepped up. I like the other teammate, while we're talking about Gonzaga real quick. What's the other, the white guy for Gonzaga? Look him up for me, Eddie, since I brought him up. That's my bad.
All
I'll put
right.
you out there like that. But I like him as a pro is what I'm saying. The other guy on that team with Gonzaga, you know what? We just look at the mock draft and see right now. But but Ben Carroll, while you looking that up, Eddie, Ben Carroll, hey man, he kind of reminds me of Karl Malone, to tell you the truth, with the way he's
Are
built.
we talking about Nembhard,
No,
the point guard?
Drew Timmy. I like Drew Timmy. I think Drew Timmy is going to be good in the NBA. You put him on the right team in the right situation. I think he could be a formidable player. I mean, I like his footwork. I like his craftiness down low. I mean, I like him as a player in the pros. I really like Timmy a lot, Drew Timmy. But unfortunately, as a whole, that team just, I don't think they had the overall, once you get against those teams that has that athleticism. But Ben Carroll, Eddie, before we get out of here, I like him a lot, man. And I'm looking forward to seeing the Rockets take him because I think he will be on the board at that time. And he reminds me of Karl Malone. And the fact that he can shoot the ball, and he's only going to get better. Yeah. And he has an NBA body already.
I think that's why he fits the Rockets the best, too.
And, yeah, played in big games, like you said. So he's come from Duke. Of course, played under Coach K. So he can play some defense. He can give you what you need on offense. He can run the floor with Jalen Green and those guys. Of course, he can space the floor some and shoot the ball. He can take you off the dribble. Hey, man, I like Ben Carroll, so I think the Rockets will be getting a superstar in Ben Carroll.
Let's hope so. I think it would be very sweet for Houston to do that. And if NBA scouts, if the Magic see that they want Ben Carroll or they want Smith, and if those two guys end up being the first off the board and you get Holmgren, I think you can't be mad. You've got something you can work with there because you think that if he reaches his his potential, you've got essentially, if you put a little bit of weight on the guy, you've got Nikolai Jokic, a guy who can stretch the floor, who's very good at shooting threes, and who may be a better passer than anything else.
Yeah, passer and a tremendous. I'm not talking about a good shot blocker, a superb shot blocker. Who goes after every shot.
It's said to be instinctive, which kind of like the way Olajuwon. You know how Olajuwon was so instinctive in the way he was able to block shots, not coming up, not falling for the pump fake, always reposition himself so he could always be ready to jump, wait for the shooter to jump, then he would jump and get the ball.
That's what I like about Holmgren. He goes after every shot. Man, when Olajuwon when he was at U of H, he was a pogo stick, man. He was trying to block everything. And, of course, his first few years in the NBA. But Holmgren has that type of attitude, and he goes after every rebound. And I don't think, listening to him, I don't think he wants to be this big, bulky guy. I think he wants to be slim and kind of agile. But, again, just keep working on your footwork. Get stronger naturally. He wants to get stronger. And work on your mid-range game to go along with those guard skills you have. And I think all three of these guys can be great. Jabari Smith. And, of course, Jaden Ivey. I mean, you're talking about Keegan, the guy from Keegan Murray, I think his name is. So, hey, we'll talk some NFL.
And also with the Rockets, they do have that second pick at 17. I'm seeing a lot of mock drafts mocked to them. Ousmane Dieng from New Zealand as a big wing, another guy 6'10", shot creator, and a guy who has been very successful in the NBL. And has been having success since he was 18 years old. This is a big guy, an international type of guy. Maybe, dare I say, maybe it's a Luka type guy that could come over and be an international sensation for the Rockets, who are starting to, add to that list of players internationally that come in and have success with them here in Houston.
And not only that, Eddie.
Yao Ming sort of opened the door for that. Right. And then now here we go. It's all sorts of other players from other countries.
Absolutely, man. And you know what I like about the Rockets? I like the way they've been scouting this lady and the talent that they've been bringing in. And again, we've talked about the Rockets all year. Now, granted, they're where they are as far as draft, but you're talking about some tremendous young talent on their team. And to your point about these players, Sengun, I thought that was a find right there. So, hey, we'll see what the Rockets do with that pick, man. And if they continue to scout like it seems like they've been doing, hey, man, I think they're going to make a great pick right there. We'll see what the Lakers do. I wanted them to get
don't forget, there's still that possibility that they package that 3 and 17 and trade for a current NBA superstar. So just hold on to your hat. So the Rockets have already put it out there that they feel like that positions them to make a trade for some of these players that are coming available in trade, are going to be looking for new contracts that they may not be getting in their current situations and with their current teams. So the Rockets are open for business. They're open. I hope they draft one of the young players. I really hope they do. But if they swing and they go and get a bona fide superstar, I'm curious to see who they target.
There it is. And we'll see. We see who the Lakers are targeting right now for the head coach
position.
Go
get that old.
I wanted them to get Mark Jackson.
Go get that old Chet Nowitzki and let him come play over here.
I got you. Hey.
Let him come be the old Dirk Nowitzki of the Houston Rockets.
For real. But you know what? The Lakers, we'll see what they do. Of course, Darvin Ham right now played a lot of years in the NBA. Darvin Ham, who's actually the lead assistant for the Bucks. Of course, you have Kenny Atkinson.
Dumb name. No, I'm kidding. That's a dumb name. No, I'm kidding.
You crazy, man.
But also
Terry Stotts. What happened to Mark Jackson? You know what's wrong? The Lakers, Jeannie Buss and these guys, they have this Jerry Jones syndrome right now where they want to have somebody they control.
Well,
Mark Jackson is too headstrong. He's too headstrong for them.
No, probably, and that's
he's
why
too headstrong.
That's
he's
why
too much of
I'm
his
not.
own guy.
He didn't make the final list.
He didn't make the final list because they know Mark Jackson.
But think about this too. I've also
his way.
I've heard
they want somebody they control. They can't control.
I've heard rumors that, of course,
even though I want these guys to get the shot.
Maybe if they can't get the guy that they really want, if they're going to have a stopgap, it's going to be somebody they can control, not somebody who's going to come in and run amok. But I've also heard rumors that there is a fourth name that is on that list but isn't on that list, at least not publicly.
Okay.
And that's if the 76ers decide to move on
Doc?
from Doc Rivers. Then Doc Rivers immediately finds himself planted on that list, and he becomes a possibility for the Lakers in 2023.
You know what, man? I like Doc Rivers, man. I like Doc Rivers. But you've heard me say I almost felt bad. I mean, Doc Rivers is a great coach, has a championship with the Celtics. But again, I've said it before. I think Doc is he's a great motivator. The players love playing for him. I think he's a tad bit overrated as far as adjustments, in-game adjustments, and things of that sort. I mean, we don't have time to get into the Philly situation right now and the James Harden situation, which I want to give you credit. The last time we were here, I posed a question to you, and you were very adamant, even though I've said all along, too, that I didn't think James Harden could keep it up. I was hoping that he could probably keep it up, not only for his sake, but for Joel Embiid's sake.
Just long enough to prove Eddie wrong.
No. You know what? But I was hoping that they could make some noise for Doc's sake, for Embiid's sake. But it didn't surprise me that Harden ran out of gas and that he did not show up. But I think Doc, the Lakers, if he was available, I'm sure the Lakers would for his namesake. But I still think he's a tad bit overrated when it comes down to it as far as getting into these games. I mean, come on, man. I don't need to go back to the series that he's blown, things like that. Again, a champion, a damn good coach, but I think just a tad bit overrated. Again, I would have given Mark Jackson a shot, but again, he's too headstrong. And Jeannie Buss don't want anything like that.
Jackson's not on the list.
Not now. But they interviewed him.
I know, and they said nope.
That's my point. Because he, in my opinion, I think they want somebody that they can kind of control like a puppet. Yeah. But we'll see. I mean, not to take anything away from those guys. Darvin Ham, again, lead assistant for the Bucks. Of course, Kenny Atkinson, assistant for the Golden State Warriors. So you see he's done some things. He's been through some battles, and he has some championship pedigree. Terry Stotts, former coach with Portland, who has some experience. So I don't want to just down those guys like that because they may turn out to be great coaches. Somebody like Darvin Ham, we shall see. But
dumb name.
Why you say that?
I'm just joking.
Oh, okay,
it sounds funny. The name Ham.
Oh, well, okay. I got you.
You can say dumb name about pretty much a lot of people, man. We've all got some funny names.
Yeah. Hey, man, but you know what, though? Let's get out here, Eddie. Next week, we'll talk some NFL. We had planned on
mainly because it makes me hungry. I think so. Darvin Ham sounds like a Christmas dish.
Huh? Yeah, I hear you, man. Hey, but you know what? Hey, it's been fun as always. See you the week after next, buddy. And I'll tell you this. Hey, we'll see what happens tonight. We'll see which Golden State team comes out. And if it's going to be the team that's going to have like 25 turnovers and it's just going to throw a game away because they're going back home and they know they can finish them off, I hope it's not that team. I hope it's the Golden State team that comes out and they actually put their foot on Dallas next. And I'm glad Luke is getting this experience right now. I'm glad Jason Kidd is getting this experience.
You glad he's getting that ass whooping? You looking at him
you know what? He needs another player or two on his team.
Like
man.
A sentimental daddy. This is going to hurt you more than it hurts me, son. Take this whipping.
Hey, man, take that whipping. Go ahead and gain that experience. Get you another superstar to run with. Jason Kidd is going to have these guys even better.
Wouldn't they love to trade up with the Houston Rockets and maybe get a Chet Holmgren or somebody like that? How that would make their offense so much better.
I don't know if they'll want a Chet Holmgren because they really just got rid of a guy in Porzingis.
Chris Porzingis, but the thing about Porzingis is he never could stay healthy even before they got him. So they knew they knew what they were getting themselves into. They gambled and they lost.
Right. Hey, so we shall see, man. We shall see what they decide to do.
With him, he may be frail, but he's yet to show
he's strong,
persistent injury concern, where it's
at
chronic, year after year.
Right. Porzingis was very soft, and I didn't realize how good of a trade that was until I actually saw Dallas actually ascend. And again, credit to Jason Kidd, whether they lose tonight or not.
How long are you going to wait on the guy to finally, be available?
I know, right? Exactly. I mean, he's always out with the knee injuries and things like that, where you have Dinwiddie, a guy that can create his own shot. But they just have all perimeter players right now, and they don't have anything for Golden State. But again, we'll see which Golden State team decides to show up tonight. If they come out with guns a-blazing, they finish them off, they get some rest, and they wait on these juggernauts in the East, in Boston and Miami.
Collecting
so we
all that rust.
All that will. Hey, maybe that rust lasts maybe the first 5 minutes of game one, and then that greatness takes over.
Yeah, they spray a little bit of that WD-30 and Steph Curry.
Draws.
That's all it takes, a couple of threes, and they loosen up.
That's it, bro. That's it. Hey, we'll talk NFL. I'll talk some NFL next week if I have Brett in here with me, which tentatively right now he's scheduled to come in here. But if something happens with him, I'll probably be in here by myself doing it like I used to do it back in the day, where I just go solo and just go for it. But we'll talk NFL, and even when Eddie comes back, because OTAs are starting right now, and we'll have a lot of NFL to talk about and break down as the weeks progress. Of course, the Astros, we'll talk more MLB. The Astros are still balling right now. Eddie, before we get out of here, what's your take on the Astros, bro?
Tough loss to the Indians last night. Luis Garcia, not good, but that's what you get.
Verlander's been great.
That's what you get when you've got these young pitchers, Framber Valdez, Luis Garcia. They go through these streaks where they're really good, they're really dominant. You see why they're coveted, members of the pitching staff, and then you see the times where they struggle and they're going through the growing pains. And last night was one of those nights. But I fully expect the Astros to bounce back. They're playing a lot of baseball, not a lot of days off. So pay attention to the way Dusty Manager manages the lineup and manages the rest for the guys that need rest, the Brantleys of the world, the Altuve, guys who need to take a break here and there so you're not overworking these guys. But ultimately, you got to be thrilled with what you've seen from the young Pena leading all Major League Baseball shortstops in WAR rating. You gotta love it, just being happy about the Astros making a decision, going with the young guy, being right about that decision, and seeing a guy produce, and then just watching the team perform the way they perform. Justin Verlander taking no hitters deep into games. It just gives you a feeling that the Astros are right back where they've always been, and that is as a contender for the World Series once again. And we'll see how it all shakes out. But it's certainly, so far this season has been exciting. Even after a slow start, the Astros show that they are going to be a formidable opponent throughout this entire season and postseason.
Absolutely. I 100% concur with that. And I really look forward to watching them the remainder of the season, because I'm rooting for Dusty and the Stros. I want Dusty to get that World Series ring. And right now, the way things are trending, they're one of the teams, to your point, they are one of the teams. If the pitching staff can hold up, now they have their frontline starter back in Verlander, a veteran, a guy who knows how to win. And so they have him back at the helm as the number one pitcher with these young guys who has the experience now.
Right.
And if they can develop some consistency.
Yeah.
So we shall see. But
And
the bats are always there.
Yeah,
the bats are there.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the bats. Kyle Tucker, hitting well.
He's really having a great year.
Jordan Alvarez, God, he's so good. I just you want to keep him on a shelf, except when he has the bat.
Right.
You don't want to see him get hurt
in
the field. And then don't forget they've got Lance McCullers, rehabbing, waiting in the wing. What a boost to the pitching staff he's going to be when he comes back. And you've got that nasty curveball that teams have to see every 5 or 6 games. So that's something to keep your eye on. And then also, I wonder if the Astros are going to make a move for a legitimate hot shot closer if one comes available here near the trade deadline.
That would be nice.
Presley, he's great in everything that he does, but he may be better geared for a setup man, or maybe just transition to the bullpen entirely because of the loss of velocity. He's a couple mile an hour down from where he was last year and where he has been in the past. And if it's not working, and if he's giving up saves, then I could see the Astros digging deep in that farm system and figuring out how to make a move for a guy who will fit in that role for them, because that could end up paying dividends and end up being the Achilles heel for the Astros if they don't make a move going into the postseason.
Right. And you know what? I'm going to give kudos to the New York Yankees, the way they're playing right now. Aaron Judge, I think he's playing for a contract right now. The Mets, I've always been worried about Scherzer. Now he's out for 6 to 8 weeks. You remember I've always said, man, look at the torque he puts on his body. And so they gave him a lot of money, so we'll see what happens. But Aaron Judge, Stanton, those guys are playing at a high level. But to throw a little shade their way real quick, what did I tell you about a month ago when you were telling me about the story that came out about them cheating?
Yeah.
Remember I told you what
Yeah.
you probably would not hear nothing else about it? Case closed.
Yeah.
Case closed. Hey, but we'll be back. We'll be back. The Sports Court. Legends live and let live.
Later, guys.